Welcome to episode 10 of Lifting the Soul Ministries podcast. Today we're going to be talking about a subject that really impacts the world in a challenging way, and that is divorce. For many fathers, divorce can feel like an isolating experience, filled with uncertainty about co-parenting, personal healing, and what the future holds. Our next guest saw the need and created a powerful resource to guide men through it. Jude Sandvall is the creator and guiding force behind the Divorced Dadvocate, found online at thedivorcedadvocate.com. Through his work, he has built not just a podcast, but a thriving community where he provides men with the tools, support, and mindset to not just survive divorce, but to thrive in its wake. His work has had a massive impact, launching his show into the top 5% of the podcasts in the entire world. He's here today to share his wisdom on fatherhood, growth, and building an incredible life after a divorce. Jude Sandvall, welcome to the show.
Great, thanks, Jason. It is a pleasure to be here. Appreciate what you guys do and the message you're bringing to the world with your own podcast.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff. I'm really looking forward to having you on and really share your message as well, because this is one aspect that we don't know and touch on. We touch on a lot of aspects of relationships and how to move forward through them, but this is one aspect that sometimes is unavoidable. So why don't you, in your words, share what you do, how you came to do this work, and anything else you want to share?
Sure. Well, I think what you just said is pretty poignant because it is not something that we talk about a lot, particularly with men, right? I think that there is a lot of shame that comes around divorce with men, particularly dads, and I work exclusively with dads going through divorce because it is a lot different than, say, if you don't have kids and you're getting a divorce. You are always going to be tied to that person, your acts, and you're going to have children, and there's still going to be some sort of relational dynamic that's going to be going on that your children are going to be watching. And so the whole dynamic is a lot different than just getting a divorce and saying, hey, nice try, better luck next time, we'll see you later, right? Because there's kids and you're going to be, depending on the age, potentially still co-parenting and trying to be a single dad and single parents ongoing for a decade or a decade and a half, maybe 2 decades, right? So that's the big thing around why I did it. I got into it after my own high conflict divorce 13 years ago. It started 13 years ago. I've now officially been divorced longer than I was married. I was married for 11 years, and I have 3 wonderful daughters. They were 6, 4, and 2 when the process started. They are now currently 19, 17, and 15. And so I've had the opportunity to really see from a very young age, going over a decade now, and being in family court with my ex. We had a very high conflict divorce and remained a high conflict post divorce. And so when I started working with the dads, it just was a natural to be able to guide them through that process. And we've built a community now, which is really the one. We want it to be a one-stop shop for dads to find whatever they need wherever they're at during their divorce.
Yeah, that's this is such great work, and I can actually relate to a lot of what you're saying, because as a stepfather, I saw firsthand what was going on after the divorce process, but the co-parenting needs and how the dynamic between the people in the relationship, the exes in that still have to co-parent, that have to be in contact with each other, how toxic that can become. The father in this case was someone who definitely needs some help, and I hope that he gets the help that he needs. But the aspect of how it affected the kids was very poignant. And being a step parent, you can only do so much. You can only be that kind of role model and support system that they see every other week. They're old. They're older now, so we don't have the parenting plan. They're both adults, so they've gone off and done their own things. But while they were growing up, I came into their lives when they were 8 and 10, and seeing the ways in which it really affected them. The effect, even though both parents tried to keep it contained. Well, at least my wife did. Trying to keep that contained away from the kids still pick up on stuff. And so I can really relate how it creates a huge rift, or how it can create a lot of complications for those children, and the need for support that the children definitely need during that chaotic time.
Yeah, I see this too.
Even in the best circumstances with a healthy, functional family unit, it's challenging, right? Being parenting, just being a parent in general, as you both know. So when there's high conflict and difficulty and challenges, and you're going through something that's such a life-changing circumstance like divorce, where you're completely changing the whole dynamic, the environment, different households, that has an impact as well on kiddos. And so if you get through it in a healthier and less traumatic manner, then that can actually be a benefit to the kids, and teaching lessons that would be otherwise very difficult to teach in potentially an intact family. So there is opportunity in it, and I try to point that out to the dads that I'm working at, that depending on what happens, I know, and I've seen with my daughters some of the amazing things that they've been able to learn through this process that is setting them up for success and putting them ahead of things in their adult life, because of what they've experienced, and because we're able to do a relatively healthy manner. So for sure.
And that's huge, because as myself being divorced as well, I've seen the impacts on my children. My two girls are older; they're 25 and 23, and they still live with their mom. And then my son, he's 14, and so I still get him on a regular basis to hang out with and do that single dad thing with them and stuff. And our with the way current position that my relationship is with my ex-wife, I see the damage that has happened with my children, right, and the struggles with that, and it is difficult to navigate through that, as because there's only so much I can do on my side, and stuff, and so there's the other side as well, that that has to take accountability for their actions and stuff, but. These kinds of forums, what you're doing is important, because guys like myself do need support in this area, post divorce, because it doesn't just affect myself, it affects my children as well, and so how do we navigate those waters? How do we what kind of things can we do as fathers to be that best support, to help to the best we can set up our children to be successful, and also navigate what they're going through as well, because there's a lot of emotions that the children experience from divorce as well.
Yeah, that's our goal, is to get every dad involved in the community at the time that he's either contemplating or has been served with papers and is going to go through a divorce, whether or not he likes it or not, because that's one of the things that we kind of do as men, is we sometimes self-isolates, and that makes things more difficult. And the fact of the matter is, when you're going through something that is life-altering like this, you need to have somebody that can help and that can guide you through this process. And we, just like anything that you do for the first time or the first couple or few times, you're not going to do it. You're not going to know anything about it. You're not going to know what to do. It's going to be very disconcerting and chaotic and difficult and challenging. And so why not surround yourself with people and a community that is going to come around you, is going to lift you up, is going to be able to give you feedback, also listen to you and help you to mitigate some of the difficult and challenging things. And it's a great thing that there's a lot of resources out there for women. There are not a lot of resources out there for divorced or divorcing dads, and that was the big gap that I've seen, and there's still not. I've been doing this for 5 years now, and there's still not a ton. There's more, and we're getting more men into helping, getting mental health help and talking about things and therapy and whatnot, but we've got a long way to go.
I agree, and that's the beauty of being in this environment and being able to bring you onto not only our platform to share your experience and your expertise. It's to bring awareness for the men out there that there is stuff that is growing. There are things that are development. There are things that are out there and available for you to get the help that you need, and so. And so that's our heart is to not only serve men to the best of our ability, but to expose them to people such as yourself, Jude, who have created an amazing platform that are helping men in all sorts of different ways. And I believe, if I understand correctly, you have stuff for that works towards also hopefully preventing divorce as well, right? You have some programs around that as well.
Well, so we don't have specific programs, but the first thing when I'm meeting with a dad that's either going through divorce but served papers or is contemplating it, is I'll ask them if there is any, if they feel like there is any opportunity for them to be able to reconcile. Sometimes that's just not possible, but oftentimes, and oftentimes I mostly get dads that come to me. Well, the majority of men are served, 70, 80, almost 80%. So the majority of men come to me you're playing catch up, right? Because if you've been served papers, the probability that your ex or soon to be ex has been thinking about this is very high, and they've been probably thinking about it for months, if not years, and planning. So that puts them in a mental, emotional state that is far advanced from where the dads might be. So just trying to catch up on that is a huge thing. So we talk about, hey, is there an opportunity? What have you done in the past? What can you do now, if possible? And then if there is, I've got relationship coaches that I work directly with that I will refer them to, and oftentimes I'll refer them to the relationship coach and hopefully never hear back from them, because I can tell everybody that's listening right now, it is much easier to fix your marriage than it is to go through divorce. 100% guaranteed. It is difficult and as challenging as you might believe that it is going to be exponentially more difficult and challenging to go through a divorce and then parent and go through life post-divorce. Now, again, let's just put that with the caveat of abuse or anything like that. That's not something that we ever want to encourage people to stay in. But if there is an opportunity, then work on fixing your marriage, because it's going to be a lot easier to do than getting a divorce.
You raised some really good points there, Jude. And as you were talking, a question just kind of came up as far as what men need to prepare for, because we know that women initiate 75 to 80% of all divorces. So when men receive the papers, when they are notified, when they are served by the divorce process, that their wives want to separate, what is it that men can mentally what can men do to mentally prepare and make sure that they are at least getting ready for the process?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jason. So the first thing I would say is stop and take a breath, right? Because that can be an emotionally charged thing that happens. And so if you've been served, and even if it might not be surprised, then it's just going to bring an overwhelming amount of emotions up. That just is like a tidal wave. And so just first thing, stop. And the second thing I would say is don't run out and get an attorney. That is not the first thing. to do, because an attorney is just looking at the legal process. I'm a big fan of coaching for whatever you're doing, whether it's personal, whether you're physical, in the gym, therapeutic, like in order to do something, what I alluded to a little bit earlier, which is if you've never done something, the first time you went to a gym to work out, to get your health up, or maybe had a really specific thing that you were training for, you didn't just jump out there and just start doing stuff willy-nilly. You found somebody that's going to help guide you, somebody that knew what they were doing. That's why divorce coaches are becoming very popular. We have group meetings on our in our community that are free. We do group coaching and workshops. We also have individual private coaching. That would be the best case scenario. And while I understand that the finances might necessarily be there for all guys to do that, then start to educate yourself on the process and what's happening, so that you can really get to learn. You're in charge of this process, because you are going to be the one that's going to have to guide your attorney, guide the process, learn the process, decide what you're going to do with your ex. Hopefully, if it's amicable, you guys are going to be able to work together. But even if it's not, and if it's not, sometimes usually there's a relational dynamic that goes into that, and it's uncomfortable for the guy to lead, the dad to lead, and that might be one of the reasons that the marriage is coming to an end. But you're going to have to learn to do that and take the lead. And so the first thing you do is take the lead on yourself, because the only thing you're going to be able to do is control yourself through this process. So just start with taking a breath, stopping. Don't have emotional reactions. Don't go crazy. You will get through it. You're strong enough to get through it, and then start the process of looking for resources. That's, I think, probably the number one reason why the podcast is blown up worldwide. And it is literally a worldwide podcast. We've been listened to in over 150 countries and 6,000 cities across the world, which is absolutely crazy, because I thought we would just start this little thing here in Denver, Colorado, where we'd have some group meetings, and we just have a little practice of helping guys and coaching some guys, and the podcast started. And then we get guys that tune in from and get in our group meetings and stuff from all across the world. And so the good news is that we're getting resources out to guys and to dads. Bad news is that divorce is getting normalized everywhere across the world, and so that's unfortunate. So yeah, so that's a long answer to just stop, take stock, try to find resources, whether it's a podcast or another guy you know, or and don't go to the attorney first. That's I guess the big thing is it's the not to do, because you want to build your team, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit, because there's a whole process that goes around doing this, and it's mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. There's so many things that go into it.
Yeah, I really appreciate what you shared there, because that was, you were right. You know, when my wife told me that she wanted a divorce, you talk about that tidal wave of emotions. It was there. I went into a depression. I didn't know what to think. Like, you know, I still wanted to work on the marriage, all that kind of stuff, right? And so it really hit me hard. And I'm thankful that I had some coworkers and stuff that had already been through divorce, and they kind of helped me with some of the stuff and everything. But yeah, I really do appreciate what you say. You know, like, take that time to breathe, allow it to sink in, and get yourself educated and find support. And because those are things that really helped me. I mean, there's things I could have probably done better, definitely. But I think that's where you're leading up to is so what are those kinds of steps that you would recommend outside of, so you know, the guy's taking some time, he's now looking for support, education. Where does he go from there?
Yeah, well, ideally, if you're working I have a process that I take guys through when we're doing when we're doing individual coaching. And one of the first things is starting to identify what it is, what your vision and direction is that you want things to look like post-divorce. And for a lot of guys, they've never thought of that, obviously, because they didn't know that they were getting a divorce. But whether or not you like that you're getting a divorce, you need to start thinking kind of in those terms, because your life is about to change whether you like it or not. And you have a choice whether or not you want to take the bull by the horns and do something with that and move it forward in the direction that you want, or just kind of let things happen. And some guys choose the latter, right? Which is they just kind of let things flail around. They don't really get educated. Some of them will just hire an attorney and trust an attorney to do what the attorneys do, which the attorneys only know the legal process. So they're just going to get you through the divorce. And when I say get you through the divorce, it may or may not be in you or your family's best interest how they get you through the divorce, how they set you up post-divorce, whether that's financially good for you, whether the parenting plan is financial or is good for your kiddos or not. They're just getting you through the legal process. So creating that vision and direction and what you want for parenting time, how you want your relationship to look with your kids, how you want your finances to be. It's going to be different. It's just a simple math equation, one household into two. There's going to be a different lifestyle. It's going to be a different environment that you had before. So really start with that, and then work backwards from there in how you're going to go about doing that, how you're going to build your divorce team, I call it. You're going to be the coach of this divorce team. The attorney might be an important one, like a quarterback or a running back, but you also need somebody that's a certified divorce financial analyst that's going to look at all your finances. Somebody that's, if you have a home involved, if you can sell the home, or if you can refinance the home or do an assumable loan. You want a certified divorce lender to look at those things. You want somebody that's going to be a therapist that's going to help you work through these mental, emotional issues that are going to go on, because it's just going to be, it's a grieving process, right? And while we have formal grieving processes for things like death, we don't have a formalized grieving process for the loss of a relationship, the changing of a dynamic like that. And if anybody listening knows anything about grief or going through that process, there are steps to it, but it's all over the place, right? It's just, sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's depression, like you said, Jason, and that's all part of the process. So having a therapist that can help you, and then having a coach is going to guide all this, because the therapist is looking out for you mentally, emotionally, is telling you to do this. The certified divorce financial analyst or your financial planner, CPA, is telling you to do this, and somebody else is telling you, one of your friends is telling you their experience and do this. While your friends are well-meaning and family's well-meaning, they haven't been through this probably, and if they have, they've only been through it once, so they don't really know, and every divorce is unique. So having that coach that's going to help you to build that, and then going through the process, you might need to be working on and building skills to help you deal with being depressed about it, right? Because that's part of the grieving process. And if you haven't gone through it, then you need to learn skills. We get a lot of this about, well, he's depressed or she's depressed. We go through periods of times where we're going to have sad things like this happen, where we actually need to learn the skills in order to improve our lives. And then, we go on from there. But that kind of gives you a good idea of the starting process that we start to work through, and that you can work through. And you can do this. I'll say you can do this on your own, right? And there's resources out there, especially in our community. If you come to our resource, it's been like 2 weeks in a row now, I get an email from a couple of guys that have said, hey, your podcast has just been a lifesaver for me. I've been listening for the 2 years that I've been going through my high conflict divorce, and I'm out on the back end now. Things are much better, et cetera. So, and I've never talked to them once. They just listen to the podcast. We have 272 episodes, and we talk about everything from legal to mental, emotional, et cetera. So you can do it yourself. But again, if you can find somebody, somebody that can help you through that process, that's just going to expedite things. Because what I'm sharing now, over a decade later, man, I wish I had me to go, hey, okay, have you considered this, right, Jason? Like some of the things that you said that I could have done better. I would have loved to had a resource to say, well, consider this, or maybe you can do this, or here's a skill to work on. It would have been so much better. It would have been so much better for the kiddos too, right? Instead of just kind of flailing through this.
So that's really great insights, because there are times when I look at I'm on my second marriage, and this one has been very successful. My first marriage, not so much. And there are some things that I know that I contributed heavily to the dissolution of that marriage, but also some things that I wish that I had known myself, that I could have prepared myself better, as well. So I love the points that you raise. And they kind of, as you were talking, another question came. In your experience, how has the divorce process and the finalization of divorce impacted men's confidence and sense of purpose?
Yeah, well, it is very challenging for that. Just the ending of a personal relationship, a romantic relationship, a marriage like that, in the best circumstances or an amicable, is difficult in going through that. We've all been through breakups and had to deal with the emotional turmoil that happens through that. So imagine years of building something together, and then family, and then kids, and then a lifestyle, and then having that and that was my biggest thing. So, and that was the hardest thing for me, was I had built exactly what I had designed in my mind of the life that I wanted: the house, the cars, the business, the kids, the community involvement, and place in the community, all that stuff that I had envisioned since I was a young man. I'd always wanted to have kids and be a dad. I loved being a dad to my daughters. It was just the best thing in life. So my mission, if you will, in my life was my family. And so when that just went down the tubes, it was hard. It was really hard, because it was a completely having to redefine everything of like what I just described, and I had no idea what to do. And Jason, you and I have a common friend, who's a former Mr. Universe, right? And he talks about his divorce, and how he went through his, and he didn't have kids, and how look, this is like literally one of the strongest men in the world, physically in the world, and he said he just cooped himself up and closed the drapes in his apartment for a year, because he didn't know how to deal with this and how to figure this out. So it has a huge impact, Jason, and I don't know that there's not one way for that guys go through it, but it has a huge impact. And so, and I would say it's different for every guy, because we have all of our different things that we bring to the table. Like you said, there's things in my past relationship that I know that I could have done better. There was a relational dynamic there that I knew. We have our childhood and our childhood traumas. Maybe some of us, like myself, both of my parents were divorced. Actually, my dad was divorced twice. Then my parents got divorced also, and so this was like a generational thing. And I had childhood things that were brought into it, and so it does a huge number. And then I'll say that it just is not structured to be a gratuitous. I don't want to say gratuitous, just friendly to dads and men in general, and that just makes it even more difficult. You add in a high conflict, somebody that might be personality disordered, or at the very least have some mental emotion issues, and then that just exacerbates things even harder. And like for me, I just kept thinking, am I crazy? Am I crazy? And I get guys to the community all the time thinking, oh man, like I just feel like I'm going crazy here. And then they hear us talking and they go, oh my God, that's the same thing I've been thinking, or the same thing I'm going through, etc. And then there's a sense of relief that they're just not on their own out there just trying to figure this out.
And that friend that you're talking about, the one that we know, he's a very successful entrepreneur in his own right.
Yeah.
Not just being Mr. Universe, but a very, very successful person. And when he was talking about how when he was going through that divorce, he was contemplating shutting everything down
Yeah.
and just, becoming a complete recluse. So absolutely, I totally understand where you're coming from as far as the impact this has on men.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like I said, I think it's getting better where we're doing like your guys' podcast and we're talking about this stuff more and just making it more approachable for men and giving them the opportunity, at least to have the opportunity now, whether they grasp it or not. I think modern therapy is not structured very well to help men in the process of figuring this stuff out. So that's one of the things in coaching that I think helps, and that is one of the things that attracts men to coaching more than therapy. And now, while coaching is not therapy, actually coaching and therapy together is probably the best case scenario. But at least we're getting to the point where men are starting to get involved. They're starting to show up. They're starting to ask for help, which is really good. But we can still do a better job of how we do that with men and how we attract men. Right now, we're still trying to fit them into the therapeutic model, and that doesn't work for all men. For me, I'm okay with talking about this stuff. I've gotten to the point where I'm good at talking about feelings. I can show them. I can cry in front of my daughters. In fact, they now tease me like they'll say, "Dad, are you going to get emotional?" I'm like, "Yeah, I might get emotional." But so like I've gone to the other end of the spectrum where I was stoic, and now it's like I think about them and I'm like, "Oh, you're so cute," right? So that's good, but that's not all guys. Right, and so we need to do a better job of creating the ways in which we're bringing dads in, and that's one of the things. One of the reasons we do events with the dads here, at least locally. I've got some dads across the country that are really starting to try to do some of their own stuff as well. The ideal is that we get dadvocates all across the country, all across the world that are there, and when somebody is going through divorce, they can plug into the dadvocate community wherever they're at. So that would be the best case scenario.
Yeah, I agree. Like, there's we've gone through several generations where men are basically taught to hold their feelings in, hide their feelings, not talk about things. We're told that we don't matter in that sense. Like we have to be the strong ones. Right? There's been so many messaging for so long around that kind of, just bottle it all in and stuff like that. And that's challenging because that's one of the reasons why men go to addictive things such as alcohol, drugs, or other things, is because they're constantly bottling everything in and they have no avenue to let that out and stuff. And so having, like you said, communities such as yours and such as ours, where we're reaching out to men saying, hey, here's a safe space for you to come to. We're here to serve. We're here to to coach you along, and help in the best way that we can. And
yeah, Jason, I want to make a point about that, because it's a sad reality of where we're at now. We're so connected. Like, we're doing this. You guys are in a different country than I am, and we're able to talk and share about these things. And you guys are going to put it out there, and we're going to share it across the world. But we're still so disconnected locally with each other. And as men, we need to reach out to more men and be involved in more men. And we've kind of lost that. I feel, just because of the dynamics of how our society has changed. We've gone from way back from agricultural to industrial, to where there was still families and generations of men being together and meeting, etc., to now where we're just so technological and we can travel all over the place and meet across the world on just the Zoom calls like these. But we got to connect more in person with other guys. So if you're not, and then we get our families, right, and then we get isolated. We don't keep those connections with each other. We got to keep those connections with each other. And I would encourage all guys, whether you're divorced, whether you're married or single or whatever, get get those connections, whatever those connections are. It can be connecting through athletics, it can be connecting through music, it can be connecting through something, but make those connections and keep those connections always with other men. It is huge. It has such a huge impact. And if you just do that once with one guy, and every guy just keeps doing that once with another guy, we're going to stay connected, because it's just not communities of divorce, it's communities of men. And then that is going to help continue lifting men up and doing things like helping them deal with what you just talked about in being stoic, or repressing our feelings down. I can't tell you the number of guys, Jason, that come to one of our meetings, and one of us will be talking, and one of the guys will say something to the effect like, I cried myself to sleep last night. And then you just hear like a collective sigh of relief, like, oh my God, him too? Holy, like, that was me. You don't, not everyone's just jump up and say me too, right? But you can just hear that collective sigh of relief. So, and it's as simple as something like that, the relief that it gives another guy, and being able to share something like that. So guys, get and keep connected with other guys. It is incredibly important for us.
Something that you said, especially about that, really resonates. And I think one of the reasons why men don't do that is because they don't see the value in that. There's this sense of disconnect of something that men naturally do very, very well, which is to create community. People think that this is what women do. No, they don't. Men are the ones that actually create the community. And this is biologically hardwired into men through a hormone called vasopressin. And this is the hormone of territorialism, also of creating community and protecting. Whereas testosterone is more about the competing and striving hormone, taking risks and being willing to do what is necessary to keep a community protected. And both of these are absolutely necessary in the male biology. And I think that as more people hear messages like yours and ours, and realize that, yes, we as men do need to have some sort of support just to be able to know that we do belong, that we matter, and here's how we can contribute as men to our society and why that is so important. I think that's a message that is being eroded. And podcasts like ours have a great ability to really combat that and to provide a solution that men have forgotten that they possessed all along.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think so. I feel like in what you're describing is men build community, right? Men build and then protect that community. Women then are the ones that cultivate the community, right? And
Yes.
so that's kind of that's kind of the reason why, because then men build a community, then they're building another community, like they're on to the next mission, right? And so and in women, and so that's why it's a little bit easier for women to cultivate that community, because they're the ones nurturing it along, just like they do with our children, right? They nurture them for an extended period of time. We had some part in creating that child, right? Okay, but again, that's the building part, right? And then they're the nurturers and the cultivators of that community and those children. So yeah, you're exactly right, and that's good, right? That is the natural design that is good, that has brought us to the level of the level that we are in our society of everything that we have, all the comforts that we have, all the technology we have, everything that we have, all the opportunity we have to complain about everything that we don't like about the society and everything else that we have. It's an awesome thing, and I agree, it gets diminished, and unfortunately I see this a ton in family courts, and we kind of see this in society, is the diminishment of dads in the roles that they play in their children's lives. And fortunately it's moving, it's very slowly moving, but we've got a lot of resistance against it, and there's a whole segment of society that is just not supportive of men in general, but dads and fatherhood. It's mothers know how to parent, and you see the default going as the mother is the primary the primary parent, et cetera. And unfortunately, fortunately, it's not fortunate or unfortunately. The fact of the matter is you need both parents to be involved in the kids' lives. And both parents bring unique things that the other one can't bring to a child's life. And so if you're cutting out a father from a child's life, you're cutting out a high percentage of things that they are never going to learn or be exposed to, and it is going to cause problems in their adult life for them to be healthy and functioning. And we see that happening all the time with the diminishment of fathers. And what we have is all kinds of data and studies and everything else that show fathers that are involved in their kids' lives, it leads to them growing up to be better, healthy, and functioning adults. But we've got a whole segment of the population, and pretty much every media and everything else, that's treating fathers as stupid, that don't know what they're doing, the Homer Simpsons mentality, et cetera. Everything that you watch, they can't function and do things on their own. And so there's and that creates a big disconnect. I see it sometimes with my daughters. I have three, like I said, I have three daughters, and they'll say things like, "Oh, stupid boys," or something like that. And I'm like, no. We're all stupid. Like, we're all just trying to learn things, but they get that conditioning, and it's hard, man, because you could be just watching a movie. I was just watching a movie the other day called The Materialist, and it's about a dating a matchmaker in New York. And I have a sister podcast about dads dating after divorce. So we were talking about this, but even in this, with the guy who's the quote unquote unicorn, they diminish him at the end of this movie. This is like a multimillionaire that's the unicorn that knows how to dress and knows how to talk to ladies and everything else. And at the end, they just couldn't leave it well enough alone that he's good. They had to diminish him in the fact that he was not good enough and he couldn't find love and blah, blah, blah. So it's unfortunate, but as dads, it's incumbent upon us to, when we see this stuff, to point it out. If I'm watching this movie, I didn't watch this particular one with my daughters, but I will make a comment around something like that. Like, what do you think about that? And have a conversation with them. I try to use some of this, what I would describe as negative connotations around dads and men, as an opportunity to have conversations with my daughters about it. Because once you start having those conversations with them and you say, hey, well, does that look like any dad that you know, like The Incredibles, the movie, right? I had this conversation with my daughters. I was so irritated. He's a superhero, but then he's trying to be a parent and he completely fails at it, right? Well, I said, does this look like any dad that you know and that we're around? Because I've got a bunch of great dads that are married and divorced that take care of their kids great. And they're like, no, like, yeah, it's not an accurate portrayal. Sorry, guys. I am like, you got me going. You got me on the soapbox here.
This is a good thing. Yeah, this is all about you promoting your thing.
Yeah, and you bring up a lot of really good points about the social conditioning that we've, through media and stuff like that, and it is an uphill battle for all of us as men to really step up and become, a different type of leader with a different type of message. That to be honest with you, I am starting to see, on the social media feeds that I'm on, there are more people that are starting to speak up for men and for fathers and stuff like that. So we are starting to see a shift, but it still has a long ways to go because of the many years of conditioning that have been there preceding it.
Yeah, man. Well, here's what I feel is happening, Jason, is we've got a whole generation, or actually multiple generations of women at this point, that are starting to wake up to the fact that the lie that they've been told for so long is making them miserable. And they're going, I mentioned the podcast, the sister podcast, Dads Dating After Divorce, that we're doing too. So I've been dating for the last over like dozen years, right? And there are so many women that I talk to on a regular basis that are just questioning and going, oh man, I'm in now late 30s, 40s, some of them 50s, and like, this job is not fulfilling me. I don't have any kids, and the dog can't talk back to me and give me a romantic relationship that I want. And so, and in some of the younger generations, like the Gen Zs are seeing their parents and their mothers going, oh man, I don't want to grow up, be miserable, and have my life be like that. I want to do something different. And so I think that it's kind of a sad way that it's coming about, but I agree with you. I do see that it's happening, but there's still a ton of resistance, right? Because once somebody buys into that a mentality, right, whatever it might be, we see this with religion all the time, or any kind of ideology. It's hard to admit that you might be wrong or might be another way. So that's why, and you said it right when you talked about leadership, that's why it's incumbent upon us as dads and men to start providing that leadership, right? Jason said building, so we can start building some of those bridges to women, to mothers, to our children, that is going to lead to some better outcomes, and hopefully a shift in this mentality in the future.
Yeah, that's the aspect of leading is one of the most important things, I believe, that men really need to step up. They need to really embrace the idea of leadership, and this a large part of leadership is about personal accountability and really understanding how you have affected your own life. I mean, all people can benefit from that, understanding how they have contributed to their circumstances. But as a leader, that's especially important, because how are you going to lead effectively if you can't even say, you know, I screwed up, this was on me, or I know that I have contributed in some way to the circumstances that I find myself in. And being able to understand that, being able to embrace that. And you brought up the Incredibles. I love that movie, by the way, for many reasons. I understand that there are some ways in which men are being marginalized in the movie, but there's one part of the movie that I absolutely love, because it is a very accurate portrayal. When the Incredibles, that are the superhero family, they're forced to go underground, and this was the first one.
Yeah.
And he takes up a job as an insurance agent, and his life is absolutely miserable because he's been denied his purpose, his ability to do what he knows he can do really, really well. And because of that, everything does falter. His ability to be there as a father, he's not present because he's so checked out of life. He's checked out of everything. And the moment that he's able to do what he loves again, it's like this spark, this fire ignites within him. And he's able to show up as he needs to. He has to do it like he's having an affair, but he's able to really show up in the ways that really matter to him. And his wife may not appreciate that at first, but then she eventually has to get on board because she realizes, maybe he's onto something. Maybe this is what we actually have to do. And so she does reluctantly get involved, but this follows the trajectory of human biology so well. This is why men lead. Men lead because they do create the structure. They create something that can be lived in, and women make it worthwhile to live in.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful dynamic. It is a complementary, or it's supposed to be a complementary dance that both do in order to create a thriving society, a thriving civilization.
Yeah.
And the work that you do for men helps them, and the work that Jason and I do for men in tandem is there to help men to understand that their purpose is to be that leader in the family, in the community, whatever it might be, and to do what they need to do in order to build that sense of purpose that can be then filled with the liveliness that makes it something worth living in.
Yeah, I want to go back to what you initially said too about the fact that men need to step up. That bugs me a little bit sometimes, because I think that all men want to step up, but all men don't know what they don't know. And I think,
True.
I'll use my own personal life. I was raised by a single mother who was a feminist, who had significant issues, and I understand she had an alcoholic father. It was a difficult childhood. He was abusive, etc. So I understand the origin of that, but what she perpetuated was something that was unhealthy for me, which made me massively codependent. And so I didn't know how to be a masculine leader. I had a father who was very passive. He eventually left, right, because he was just trying to protect himself from my mother, who had a significant undiagnosed personality disorder. And so I did not know. I would love, and I'm a much better leader now, 30 years, 30 some years since I've left home, right, than I was when I left home. But I had no idea, and I had to learn all of this really, really the hard way, which is, again, why what you guys are doing and what we're trying to do in building community, and what I'm encouraging guys to do, is get around other guys, because you only learn that from other guys. You only learn that from your father or your grandfather or a mentor or another adult or another man that may have been through something that you haven't been through. That is the only way. So that is why we got to keep cultivating with each other, and that's part of what happened. And I think what we are seeing is part of what happens when we don't do that, and when we don't. If there is a step up part of it, us men that do know now need to step up and start sharing that, like what you guys are doing, starting a podcast, talking to other men, even if it's just talking to other men in the neighborhood. We need to be doing that and sharing that, because there are so many men and boys out there that just need and want to be able to learn and talk and lead. And when we see that, when we start getting into and having success with that in our lives, that's empowering, right? Because we want to lead, we want to build, and when we start doing that, and we see a little bit here, it's kind of why the whole manosphere thing is blown up, right? Which there's components of that online that can be very beneficial about the mentality, et cetera, except some of it takes it to extremes that are unhealthy, right? We want healthy masculinity, we want healthy boys and men. Some of that manosphere stuff is very unhealthy and toxic, if you will. But that's the reason why it's blown up and why it's so attractive to the young men, because they do want what we're talking about. So it's just figuring out how we tweak that. And then to the Incredibles, it was the Incredibles 2 is the movie that I'm talking about, when he, they deem him too dangerous because because he doesn't pay attention to all the damage he does, and then she goes and becomes a superhero, and she automatically is a great superhero, and he's a terrible dad. I mean, that's just like the theme of everything out there. Boss, be the boss, babe, and you can do it, and that's it. It's so wrong and so toxic. It's sad, and it's sad that you have to. There is never positives in beating somebody down. You're never going to build something up by beating somebody else down. And so by doing that, I just don't understand this mentality that there is out there. Like, I want women to feel awesome and great and good mothers and to be fulfilled. And that is like, can you imagine relationships like with every woman like that? I want that. So every resource and every woman that's trying to do that, that's great. We should be doing the same thing for dads and for men, and building them not up and not talking about how stupid they are or how they can't accomplish it or their failure to launch or anything else. We should be building each other up all of the time. I just don't get that mentality.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying there, and how, even for myself, I like, there was a lot of things that I didn't know because I was emulating a lot of what I witnessed through my parents' marriage. My dad had his first marriage and was divorced, and my parents stayed married their entire until my dad passed away. but they had a miserable marriage, and there was a lot of dynamics that I witnessed growing up, and all the stuff that I emulated through my marriage. And so yeah, there was a lot of things I didn't know, and it wasn't until after the divorce when I was like, okay, I got to change something, because I don't want to, when I move forward into where I want to bring another woman into my life, I don't want to go through the same things that I went through. I don't want to be doing the same behaviors. I don't want to be doing, it's not, to me, it wasn't enough to just say I don't want to, right? I had to start learning. And so that's where I got into communities with other men, being coached and stuff like that. And even moving forward to, building Lifting the Soul Ministries. It's like, okay, there's a lot of things I don't know about building this type of business. And so I've been very intentional about getting around people to help me, and that's how I met Jason, and and then it just creates a network of people where we can bring people like yourself, Jude, online, who has a massive and powerful message to share with other men, right? It's about us coming together to support each other in simple ways like this, to be able to build a community where men can feel safe to come to get the support they need, and all different stages of their life. Because like my heart is to do my best to reduce the divorce rate, to create men who are becoming those powerful, compassionate leaders in the home that are able to kindle that relationship with their spouse, and have that healthy relationship with their spouse where it's thriving, and that pours down into the children, and it keeps the family unit stronger together, which ultimately has a greater impact on the workplace, the community around them, and everything, right? Like, and but it starts with just reaching out and seeking for that guidance for the things that you don't know, and not being afraid to ask those questions, and not being afraid to admit that I don't know it all, because none of us here do.
So I don't know how much time we've got, guys, but I wanted to just bring up one thing that I think is probably the most overlooked thing that we as men, but also as dads and with our family, don't pay enough attention to, and that is our spiritual life. So I think I talked earlier about mental, emotional, physical, but that fourth leg on that stool is the spiritual aspect of this. And I can tell you, when the dads are going through this, because it is so chaotic and uncertain, and they have no idea what is going to be the outcome, right? As you experience, Jason, you just don't know what the outcome is going to be, what your life is going to look like after. As much as you can try to create a vision and direction for that, it's chaotic. For us as guys, that is the most difficult thing, right? We want a linear path, we want a checklist, we want to know where we're going, how we're doing it. That's just the masculine nature. And so going through this is so incredibly difficult. The only thing that helps with that is having some sort of spiritual anchoring and some sort of spiritual practice in your life. I'm not talking about an organized religion. I'm not talking about anything specific to Christianity or whatever it is, but having something that you can that you can get that you can anchor to, that you can get into your life, that is bigger and greater than the situation that you're in. So I would say, if there is a first or second thing, one or two or whichever, interchangeable, the community and getting involved, but also find some sort of spiritual anchor, some sort of spiritual practice that can help you to get through this process, that you don't know the outcome, but you'll have faith knowing that you're going to get through it, and that you're strong enough to get through it, and that there is a better life after it.
Oh, this is by far one of the most important things that I don't think gets talked about enough. And being someone who is a man of faith, I can absolutely 100% tell you that it is the most important thing for being a real leader. And it's understanding, it really helps to calibrate what leadership is and how men lead, because there's a book by I forget his name, but the book is called the Masculine Manifesto. And one thing he talks about is how leadership is to be of service.
Yeah.
When you are leading, you are of service. And so the whole servant leadership thing is by far the most important way and the most effective way to lead. And this has been talked about a lot, especially in Christianity, Judaism, any major religion that you find is going to have a emphasis on servant leadership and how powerful it is and how it actually uplifts everyone. And really, that is the job of men when they are building to uplift everyone. It's never about being self-serving. It's about the upliftment of everyone. A rising tide lifts all boats, sort of thing. So when you look at your ability to lead, when men look at their ability to lead as being of service, what they're looking at is the ability to create and to defend an ever advancing civilization of mankind. And how you do that is it begins and really ends. It's really bookended by that spiritual understanding of who you are and how you interact with everyone. There's a great quote by a Middle Eastern prophet, I guess you'd say, or visionary. His name was Mirza Hussein Ali. And he talks about how the quote is, "Year the leaves of one branch and the fruits of one tree." Understanding that all people actually come from the same source. They are all one. So to see each other as different really makes absolutely no sense, and it erodes the power of humanity. But when we see ourselves as being being people who are of the same stock, as the waves of one ocean, the one drop contains the essence of all of us, but the ocean is the expression of all of us. And understanding how, as when we work together, we are able to create that sense of accomplishment that we could never have completed alone. And that spiritual focus helps to create that understanding and to really emphasize that ability.
Yeah, beautifully put. And so imagine if we all as men and dads had that mentality, knowing I like the leaves and the fruits, right, of the branch, we wouldn't be cutting other branches off, right? We wouldn't even be plucking trees or anything else, because we know that our leadership has an impact on our wives, or on our ex-wives, or on our children, on everybody that is around us. And that's a healthy masculinity that we could be bringing, or that men bring to society. It would be amazing to be hearing that more often or it would be great to have young men hearing that more often, coming from their dads, older men, etc., than the messages that they're getting these days. It's unfortunate because, and if we could get everybody looking at that, right? Because that's not a masculine feminine thing, because that quote that you just described goes for everybody, because it's all like, you think about all the components of the tree that go into, there's multiple, there's masculine, there's feminine, that go all into it. And if you're cutting part of that off, the tree does not bloom, it does not blossom, it does not have leaves, it does not have fruit, it bears no fruit, like it just withers and dies. And so if everybody had that, men and women, everybody, and knew that we were all part of that one, man, wouldn't that just be a better message for us to be cultivating our lives by? That so we would be serving everybody all of the time, our wives, our exes, our kids, each other. It would be just awesome, man.
The author's name is Gary Mitchler.
Gary Mitchler. Okay,
For
I'll put that on the list.
The Masculine Manifesto. Yep.
Yeah, this is a great way to conclude our podcast for today. Like, I so much I'm online with you guys in regards to the spiritual aspect of this process. Like, my faith has been the driver of where I am today, and if it wasn't for the faith that I had, I probably would have just buried my head, and I would have went down a dark path, after the divorce, recognizing the emotions where I was. But it was really the foundation that held me together, and is what sparked the vision in my mind to bring forth the message that to help others in their journey and stuff. And so I really appreciate you being on here with us today, Jude. Your message is strong, it's powerful. It's you're doing an amazing work to serve men and the community at large. And so I really just want to encourage everybody to who is looking for support or is wanting to get more information. They can go to the divorcedadvocate.com and reach out and look at what is available on there. You can also check out what we have at liftingthesoulministries.com, and we're more than willing and wanting to help and support you men as well. And even for you ladies out there who will be coming across this podcast and stuff like that, we're not wanting to leave you out as well. But our heart is also to serve the men and stuff like that, because we know that strong men will have a strong impact in your lives as well in a healthy way. And so, do you have any final words that you would like to say, Jude, before we conclude?
No, I just want to thank you guys, Jason and Jason, for both of you for having me on today. God bless what you're doing and the work that you're doing. And let's just keep in touch, and whatever I can do to help cultivate with what you're doing, let's just keep doing it, keep serving. Thank you.
Absolutely. This has been a great podcast. I hope that the men who come across this really do take some notes. Other than your website, Jude, is there any other way that people can get in touch with you, or if they are looking for any kind of support, or ways that they can actually get any kind of answers that you can provide?
Yeah. So the website, they can schedule directly into my calendar anytime at the website at divorcedadvocate.com. We've got some group coaching coming up that they can find at dadsgroupcoaching.com that they can get involved with. That if you've got anything that's going on or you just need somebody, you can call me. My cell phone number is 720-255-1021. You can text me if you're having a bad day, or shoot me an email at jude@divorcedadvocate.com. I truly embrace what you guys are talking about as being a servant leader, and that's why I'm available to talk to guys that are having a rough time or just seeking some kind of support through the process. So do not hesitate to reach out at any one of those places.
You're doing the Lord's work, man. All right. This has been great. So I guess this concludes the podcast. We'll see everyone on the next episode. Until then, bye for now.
Bye for now.